Hello, welcome to Inside Music Curation. We're the team at Feed Media Group, and we're back here every month talking all topics music curation. We work with a lot of businesses. We curate music for brands and for apps. We're often talking about fitness, and sometimes we like to cover some of our favorite artists. And today we are joining the conversation that the rest of the world is having, and that is Taylor Swift. She came out with her latest album on Friday. We've all been spending plenty of time with it. Again, we do a lot of curation for fitness, so we have been eagerly anticipating this album. Claire, why don't you tell us why we were so excited before we even heard the tracks for Life of a Showgirl?
Sure. Yeah. I think starting off with the Max Martin production of it all, and Shellback. I think he's kind of the non-named unsung hero that's behind this duo. And yeah, both represent sort of going back to sort of the heyday of some of her like peak pop hits and really making that transition from early days of like being under the country umbrella to firmly in pop territory. Max Martin will do that to you, solidify your status there. And so, yeah, we were definitely hoping for a little, more sort of pop fanfare and some of the like upbeat but quality Swedish influenced production.
Yeah, the upbeat hits really work for fitness. Stens, I know we've programmed, Taylor's catalog all across the spectrum. How do you feel about these tracks initially, or about how Taylor has slotted into our stations over the years?
Yeah, well, look, we'll talk. Maybe we can talk a little bit about how we've curated her in the past. But on a first listen for this album, it's a victory lap. I mean, to me, it feels like she's capitalizing on her victorious 2020s, and had to do a little bit of a data capture because I'm not a Swiftie, and I was just like, dang, she's released so much. So this is her fifth new studio album this decade, in addition to 4 re-recording releases. And so even for non-music curators, Taylor is impossible to overlook in 2025. Oh, yeah, and whether you attended the Eras tour or not, and I loved seeing the film version of it. I just, it's a little rich for my blood, but the film version was amazing. We are living in the Taylor Swift era. I mean, it is like abundantly clear. And yeah, I think she's having fun. She's having fun with where she is right now, and it's a fun album.
Well, and we did call upon our resident Swiftie, Julia, your first time on Inside Music Curation, but no stranger. She's an amazing resource for Feed Media Group and our designer extraordinaire and resident Swiftie, as you can tell by her record-lined wall back there. How are you feeling about the new release and Taylor today?
I'm feeling great. I feel like it really represents where she's at in her life right now. She owns her masters. She's had the highest grossing tour of all time. And then it's such a contrast from what we saw in Tortured Poets Department, which was a full catharsis and kind of representative of a really difficult time in her life. She mentioned in an interview after releasing Tortured Poets how she just kind of wanted to put her phone in a drawer because it didn't really align with the way her life was during the release. And now I feel like she's fully embracing this album. It's really representative of where she is at right now, and she's at a great point, and I love to see it. It's such a fun album.
It's a big contrast to go from an album titled Tortured Poets to Life of a Showgirl. They are there's a huge contrast there.
Yeah, thematically definitely opposite ends of the spectrum. And I think what's been a couple interesting things. One, in my referencing the Max Martin of it all before, it ended up not being what I expected of a typical Max Martin production. Wasn't as glossy or dancey in that way, but it did sort of act like a musical bridge between the sort of storytelling and world building realms of like folklore and Evermore, but like harkening back to the success she's had with Max Martin Productions and more of like the Reputation era, and those sorts of things. So it's sort of like he was like, let's keep the specificity, let's keep, what you're doing lyrically, and let's maybe just tighten the production, but not over glossify it in that way. and that's sort of like what I hear through these tracks. The Showgirl theme being a fun, like you can hear it sonically more to me in like the beginning and end of the album. I think represents that the most. But yeah, definitely got to play with all of her eras in the themes of these songs for sure.
I heard similar to what you said, that it bridges, those two styles that she's really mastered, and she's been exceptional in the last decade, the real poppy, glossy ones with the really singer-songwritery, super lyrical, super a lot of acoustic instrumentations and things like that. And so like with Max Martin, what I didn't hear was a lot of synth, which to me, I feel like a lot of his productions are really synthy. Ariana Grande's last album was Max Martin produced, and it is very much in that synthy, glossy, shiny vein. Whereas I feel like, exactly as you said, you get everything that's so exceptional about Taylor as a lyrical songwriter. And with a lot of acoustic instrumentation, it kind of split the middle, as you said, with, everybody's going to have to work with her to work with her. He's not, and not to disparage what happened with Ariana Grande's album, but he's not just going to stamp it. They're going to have to fuse those things together.
Definitely. And I feel like there's been so much evolution of the three of them since they worked together last on the Reputation album. So it's been really interesting to see that.
See her evolve and her songwriting evolve.
Yeah. And even comfortability with like explicitness. The number of tracks marked as explicit and are rightfully so, is definitely a big shift from sort of this idea maybe that she felt earlier in her career that, to be sort of palatable to everyone, she sort of needed to like censor that part of herself. And this is very much like a literal uncensored version of what's going on. So I think it's made for an interesting, like true view of evolution in that way.
Well, and it seemed like, there was some backlash. I mean, obviously, like she still took over. I think, Claire, you were the one that pointed out rollingstone.com the day of the release. Every single article on their homepage was related to Taylor and this album. As I started digging deeper, looking at news sources, there was obviously everyone's looking, uncovering the Easter eggs, determining who these songs are about. And I found quite a few articles that referenced, wow, Taylor really went all in and, kind of no holds barred on some topics around her life. Any thoughts from the Swiftie angle on that, Julia?
Yeah, it was definitely pretty interesting to hear some of these songs. I don't think it's nothing we haven't heard before. I think it's just a more concentrated version of it, right? Like Reputation, she wasn't holding back in certain aspects of that. Same with Tortured Poets. But I think it's just a more condensed version, and like all 12 songs, not all 12 songs, but there's just a higher concentration of songs like that on this one.
Well, and we were talking a little bit in our pre-call, she's in a really great place in her life, right? Like she's got a great guy, she's got her master's back, like everything's kind of coming together. And, personally as a songwriter, I can say it's a lot harder to write a really good, happy song than it is to write a really great, sad or frustrated song. And so it definitely comes from a different place. And I know she's got a long history of playing with different roles and different angles. It's not always autobiographical, but I do think that when you're in a really good place, you have to pull from different areas of your life and what's going on around you to get to those authentic messages that resonate with people.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of like meta narrative in general with the whole thing. And I think it probably is part of what helps her sort of keep her sanity of like, I can pretend this is about something else, or like layer this in enough metaphor to like make your like brain misfire on what's really going on. And I do think she kind of like gets off on that part of it too. But yeah, the real like artistry in the wording, I think, is so impressive. And even when listening through this one, knowing, she's come off on such a massive tour, and it's like singing, the songs are so wordy singing them live is going to be, they're a mouthful. The phrasing is a mouthful. So it's like, it's really going to be interesting, if and when these get performed live to be able to see. But yeah, visually a lot to go off of as well. And I know even like we talked a lot about from a fitness perspective, what we end up gravitating towards more recent hits. A lot more have been mid-tempo. And I think it's sort of changed sometimes how we think about our parameters of like what is upbeat enough to be included on a workout station. There's people want to hear her in anywhere and everywhere in a lot of ways. And so I feel like we've been more like songs that we wouldn't necessarily expect to do well on our stations in that way still do, even if they're not, a 4 to the floor big beat or anything like that. So that's been interesting to see. And then there leaves room for the remixes to really sort of like take off. And you get like Karma with Ice Spice. And I know like LP Gobi has done he's been approved to do a few of her remixes. I'd be really curious about what those conversations are like of who she grants that approval to, because it's really only like a handful of those DJs. And yeah, they always come out true enough to the sound, in addition to just helping us of throw in some more upbeat stuff in there too.
Sten, do you want to speak a little bit more about curating with Taylor?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, I came to Taylor Swift as a curator starting a decade ago. So it's really kind of the opposite of Julia. And as Claire shared in her pre-call, she's kind of in the middle. She's, an amazing curator and also a fan of Taylor Swift, a critical fan, as you said, which I think is true. Yeah, and I think when we look at the most played tracks across our fitness customers over the past couple years, exactly what Claire said, people want to hear a lot of Taylor Swift, and there's a lot to play with. She's highly prolific. So it's really interesting, and it defies any kind of expectation. Even when I went back there, I was expecting to see a lot of songs from Midnights, a lot of songs from maybe Reputation or whatever, like really the pop heavy stuff. And instead I'm hearing songs from most of her 2020 studio albums, a bunch of From the Vault newly released songs from older eras, and classics from her 2010s albums. So we're, as a curation team, we're pulling from all across the breadth of what she has been making music wise. And I think there's a broad appetite for her music. And so it gives us a really interesting curatorial playground. And I think, yeah, that sometimes there are songs that we wouldn't put into a station because it's a little bit more mellow in a cardio station or whatever, but doesn't matter. Like if we put in Lavender Haze, Anti-Hero, or any of those more like kind of chill type of songs, the skip rates are still really low. People want to hear that music regardless, because I think there's also that empowerment aspect of that. Her music is really empowering, right? So like it might have a slower, musicological type of thing, but you still get that oomph, that empowerment, and people want to hear, Taylor Swift all across our stations.
Yeah, we lean into the science a lot here at Feed Media Group, and the science of how music works. And even in our work with Professor Karagorgas, lyrics really matter when it comes to fitness and exercise. And so anyone putting across a strong message, I think is going to go a lot farther in fitness. What other, kind of ripples effects have we seen from Taylor in some of the other, I know that, female pop has been the top of our charts for the last few years. Like what influences of Taylor's are we also seeing in what we're curating?
I mean, it's pretty obvious. I kind of call it like the Taylor class. Below is just that we are at an age now where girls who grew up listening to early Taylor are now artists, well-established artists in their own right. And so that does extend to the Sabrina Carpenters, to the Olivia Rodrigos, to the Gracie Abrams, people she has pulled to like open for her tour in that sense as well. And yeah, you hear, I think, a lot of both. I think the confidence to do what they're doing comes from sort of like the trail she's blazed in that way. And then, yeah, sonically for sure. I think both the empoweringness, even the embracing of sexuality a bit more, all of that's like coming through for sure.
Awesome. Julia, let's bring it back into the Swiftie world. Like, what else, what were some of the surprises on this album for you? What did you, expect leading it up to it with some of the Easter eggs along the way, and then, coming up with what was delivered? Where have you landed?
I feel like she was very explicit about what the album would be like when she went on the New Heights podcast. She said it would be 12 pop bangers. They would all be very catchy, and there would be nothing more than 12, which I was very suspicious of, because it's always like Tortured Poets. It was at 3 a.m. Suddenly it was a double album. So I was a little skeptical, but she was very explicit. So yeah, I honestly wasn't too surprised about it. I think that I do think that I see a new level of confidence, which is really nice to see. The different sonic features of the songs were very unique as well. You have everything from a harp to a live recording, a recording of the audience in the Eras tour at the last song with Sabrina Carpenter, the title track. So that was all great to see, the variety. And yeah, I feel like it kind of aligned with my expectations, and also kind of the expectations that she set for everyone.
Well, and again, Julia is our designer. She's very good at making Feed FM look good. Talk a little bit about the design elements, because we know that Taylor leaves nothing to chance. Everything is very, thought out and intertwined. What did you see coming through from a visual aspect this time around?
There were a lot of visual Easter eggs. I think she mentioned having a list of 100 Easter eggs she wanted to include. So many things we will never know. But first of all, I guess we can start with orange, right? Most of her albums are assigned a color. There were not too many colors left, but luckily orange was left, which is great, because I feel like it really matches the energy and vibe of the album. I mean, it's also the blend of red and yellow, which are the Chiefs colors. So that's another happy coincidence. It's vibrant, energetic, fun. And I feel like it really represents where she's at in her life. Like we mentioned, after the tour and reclaiming her masters, and Bonus getting engaged. And we saw the orange door on the Eras tour. There was always an orange door behind her. And she only walked through it on the last show, I believe, to kind of symbolize walking through the door into a new era. And I believe she also played Other Side of the Door at that show. 1,000%. But
worth looking up that set list.
Yes.
That's definitely.
But yeah, so people were just very fixated on the orange door, as they should have been, because she started wearing more orange. You also have the shattered glass motif on the album cover, which I really like. It's very subtle, but you can see kind of a shattered glass effect, which is kind of
looks really cool.
Yeah, I think it's really nice too. I'm looking back at it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a callback to also Tortured Poets. I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, which honestly could have been on this album. She sang All the Pieces of Me Shattered as the crowd was chanting more. She was going through a really tough time. But then on Canceled, she says a shattered glass is a lot more sharp. So she kind of changes the correlation of being broken to not be being destroyed, but to she changed that to empowerment and beauty. And then there's the bathtub motif as well. I can kind of go on and on with this.
Yeah.
I mean, color is really strong. I went on looking for the album yesterday and expected the teal background, and it popped up as orange. And then I had to quickly do some research. I had landed on the track by track version, which was really interesting. So if you haven't heard the album or you want to hear more, Taylor also put out a track by track version where she announces every single song on the album, and you can hear it on all the streaming sites. I thought that was really interesting. And it was very visually, I instantly knew I was in a different place. So there's so much power in the album art that these guys are putting out.
Julia, I'm curious, and this is a sneak attack, and we didn't bring this up at the pre-call, but as a longtime, deeply knowledgeable Taylor Swift fan, we haven't even talked about the one or two times you've gotten to meet her. maybe, I don't know if you want to go into that, but that's a great story. How does this rank in her discography for you just personally, or is it too early to say?
I feel like every album is for a different time in your life, and it just reflects kind of how you're feeling, like which album is your favorite at the moment. So it's hard to say. I feel like people have said, oh, what's your, say a criticism of Taylor Swift, and I'll say, oh, I didn't think the Reputation album was her best work. And then Spotify reminded me a week later that it was my most listened to album. So it's kind of like, it kind of just depends on the time. And yeah, I got to meet her at the Red tour, went backstage afterwards for like the party with her band, and her dad was there. And it really just gave me a lot of respect for her because she didn't sell meet and greets. She doesn't do the party at the Eras Tour. I think it would just be a little bit over the top with the fans nowadays. But it just like gave me so much respect for her. The fact that like they just chose big fans of her. She fed us dinner. She had like full conversations with us. She like really took the time to like chat with us and made sure we were all happy. So yeah, that was my little meet and greet story.
Well, I think it exemplifies the thing that comes through so clearly, even in the Eras documentary or the Eras concert. If you watch, the film, I should say, this joy and this connective tissue with the fans is so vibrant and amazing. And I think that is just clear from the way that she performs, that she really reaches and connects with people. And so that's intrinsic to her art and her brand. So, and it sounds like you're a validation point that that's not a show. This is not a showgirl aspect of who she is. This is a fundamental aspect of how she views her fans and the role she plays. So, and it's inspiring. Even if you're not a Swiftie, that type of thing to witness is really inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I'm also, not a Swiftie, but I listened to the full album, and I really came out, knowing that she's this, kind of larger than life personality and has this amazing world built around her. She's a regular person just like you and me that has all of her, things that she's going through. And I think she does a really good job of even at the showgirl level, like making it relatable and making everybody understand it's, we're all the same. We're all going through the same things. I think she has a very innate ability to make it relatable.
Yeah. And also I think this album was interesting because there were songs that were less relatable for people, songs that were more and songs that were less. And I feel like it's always a balancing act with her, right? Because she's a billionaire now, highest grossing tour of all time. When she struggles, people are like, oh, poor you, but I don't think people realize the psychological ramifications that fame has on your brain. And I think it's really important that she kind of talks about the more difficult parts of fame, as well as like the more relatable songs every day. So I think something like The Life of the Showgirl is beautiful. And then she also has more relatable songs like Honey, for example. So.
And I feel like I want to clarify, like there's relatable, and then there's also just like having empathy for wherever she is, even if it's not something that you can relate to. And I do think that she got very kind of playful in a lot of these songs, and gave herself she takes herself very seriously. She plans everything, but there was also like a fun aspect to this, and a little bit more carefree on some of that. All right, what did we miss? Anything else that we wanted to talk about the new album?
I think we're ready for our round robin segment where we each get to chat about a favorite or standout track from the album. Melissa, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'll kick us off. Canceled is the most catchy to me. It's the one that kind of pops back into my head. I think it's a very catchy. It's a little more on the rockin' side. So that's the one that stuck with me.
I guess I'll go next. Yeah. One thing that stuck out to me, I loved Life of a Showgirl, but Ruin the Friendship. It it just hit that like Speak Now Red nostalgia, the sound of the guitar, the storytelling style. I love the callbacks. I love hearing like a 50 Cent callback.
Which he tweeted about and was like stoked on. He's like, none of y'all got name dropped. I'm the only name drop on this whole album. Like, look at his tweets. They're hilarious.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
so excited about it.
But yeah, it's one of those songs that can get you laughing, and then the bridge is a gut punch.
Yeah.
And it's so vulnerable in a way that the rest of the album is less vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just thought it was beautiful. It's track 6, but it should be a track 5. Usually her track 5s are the more emotional songs.
Yeah, I'd agree with that switch. Eldest daughter didn't hit the same way to me.
Oh yeah,
as an eldest daughter.
The friendship was beautiful. So.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to do this because Julia brought up I can do it with a broken heart, as it would have been appropriate for this. And she shared with me some insights into that song, which I appreciate. That song is amazing. It breaks the fourth wall. You get the it's so tongue in cheek with how hard it is actually to be a performer, right? Like she's basically like, in one hand, you could see it as a farce. The whole song is farcical, but if it's really like she's in there somewhere kind of screaming like, yo, this is really hard, and I come out here with a smile every day, and I do this every day, and like, just come from my job, right? Like, give it a try, and you're never going to make it. So check that song out if you haven't. And then on this album, Opalite, it's perhaps too sweet for some people's tastes. I get it, but I love how effervescent it is, and it's that joyful quality of the album. It just kind of grabbed me right away. Like, oh yeah, she's in her happy zone and I'm feeling it.
Yeah. There's weirdly some like kind of there's a few tracks with a little bit of Motown and a little bit of like, Phil Spector-y style influenced girl group aspect, which were very popular and successful for a reason. They sound really, really fun. So.
There were a few Ronnie-esque O's in there. I caught.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And then I think my pick is Elizabeth Taylor. I think it's a really fun, a little bit reputation coded sonically, but a storytelling that like mixes the like personal and celebrity metaphor really well. And I think each time I've listened to it, I hear more in the instrumentation of like what the string section is doing, where's this harp integrated, and all this sort of stuff. That has made it really fun on repeat listens.
Well, thank you for joining us for our portion of the Taylor Swift conversation. It could go on for ages. Julia, thank you so much for bringing your expert Swiftie knowledge. It's really fun to have you on IMC. Claire and Stens, as always, our expert curators. Great to have this conversation. If this is your first time viewing, check us out. We're at feedmediagroup.com. You can subscribe. We're back here every month talking all things music curation, and we hope to see you soon.